The source of this story is Reddit No Sleep. If you like it, please support them. So, have you heard of Liam's diary? Hey, is Liam okay? What happened? Who is that person?
Someone we didn't know tried to pick Liam up from school today. The guy claimed he was Liam's uncle.
But Liam doesn't have an uncle.
We thought so too. I suspected something wasn't right straight away. It was this tall, lanky guy with red hair. Looked in his 40s. He knew your address, Liam's full name and birthday, and which class he was in. I went inside to check with the principal. When I came back out, the guy was gone.
I stood silent for a moment, facing the teacher outside the school gate. The gate separated the main road from a large playground and basketball court leading into the school. All the other kids and parents had left, and we were the only ones standing outside. Where's Liam now?
He's waiting for you in the principal's office,
she said, gesturing for me to follow. I shakily walked across the playground behind her, then through the corridors to the office. My 8-year-old son, Liam, sat on the couch in the principal's office, looking down. The principal sat behind her desk, and there was a cop standing next to her. Hey, buddy, are you okay? Liam looked up at me, his eyes showing a hint of fear. Liam had always been a quiet child. It was just the two of us at home. I was a single dad. My wife, Emma, had passed away 2 years ago due to illness. Since then, Liam had become even more withdrawn, barely speaking to anyone. To help him, I had taken him to see a psychologist, but it had limited effect. His teachers and classmates at school were concerned, but Liam remained closed off. The cop confirmed I was Liam's father, then asked me a few questions. He finally told us they would try to find the man and to report if we ever saw him again. The principal and teacher said a few reassuring words, but all I remembered was sweating profusely and feeling my knees shaking as I tried to comprehend the fact that someone had attempted to kidnap my son.
Liam, did you know that man?
The principal asked. Liam shook his head. I was on edge after that day. Liam was my whole world, my only family, and I couldn't bear the thought that he might be in danger. Who was that man? Why Liam? Did he know us, or was it just some random creep? From that day on, I personally walked Liam to and from school, never daring to be late again. Meanwhile, Liam seemed unaffected by the incident. He never mentioned it unless asked. At the time, I thought he was just shy and didn't want to cause trouble. A month later, the same homeroom teacher called me during her lunch break. She said one of the kids in her class saw Liam talking to a man through the school fence. When she rushed out, the man was gone. When Liam was asked about it, he said he hadn't talked to anyone. The girl who spotted him was adamant that she saw Liam talking to a tall, lanky man with red hair. The cops were called again and did a quick search of the school's perimeter, but found no one suspicious. That afternoon, I sat Liam down at the kitchen table. I won't get angry, I just need you to tell me the truth, I said, trying to steady my nerves. Did you or did you not talk to a stranger today at school? Yes or no? He shrugged, his eyes showing a flicker of unease. How many times have we told you not to talk to strangers? It's for your own safety. Do you understand that? He nodded, looking slightly scared. I realized I had raised my voice and immediately felt guilty. Exhausted and running on just 2 hours of sleep, I left him at the dining table and went straight to bed. That night I woke at 2 a.m. and went to the bathroom. On the way back, I decided to check on Liam. He wasn't in his room. I called out his name, growing more frantic as I searched the living room and kitchen. I checked closets, corners, even cupboards where he couldn't possibly fit. Desperation gripped me, thinking he had been kidnapped. I ran out into the street, shouting his name, running up and down like a maniac to no avail. When I came back inside, ready to call the police, I checked Liam's room one last time. He was sitting on his bed, wide awake, and staring back at me. Where were you? I asked, relieved but still alarmed. I was here, he replied. No, you weren't. I was looking everywhere for you, and you weren't here. I was, he replied. Had I imagined it all? I shook my head, feeling a migraine coming on. "Just stay in your room, okay? Don't scare me." I thought my eyes had deceived me, and the paranoia was getting to me. I should have noticed the window was wide open. About a year later, one evening, I heard a knock at my apartment door. I was inside doing paperwork while Liam was in his room playing Minecraft. I was immediately on alert. No one ever knocked on our door. We lived in an apartment block, and friends or acquaintances would always wait outside the main door and ring the doorbell. This meant it was likely an upstairs or downstairs neighbor needing something. I had a few of their numbers from when we moved in for contact should the need arise, but we weren't close. I walked up to the door and looked through the peephole. No one was there. Odd, I thought. Maybe I heard something else. Random occurrences like this had become common, and I often second-guessed myself. As I walked back to my desk, I heard another knock. This time, I was suspicious. I walked back to the door and looked through the peephole again. Still, no one was visible. Was someone pranking us? I texted my upstairs neighbor asking if he'd knocked on my door. A few moments later, I heard hurried footsteps upstairs, then received a text back. "Do not open the door. There's a guy with a huge knife hiding right next to your door." My phone buzzed again. "Calling cops, RN." "Stay inside." I froze, every hair on the back of my neck standing up. I was paralyzed for a few seconds. When I came to my senses, I tiptoed to Liam's room. "Stay inside. Keep quiet," I whispered, eyes wide with fear, sweat dripping down my forehead. My heart had never beaten so fast. Liam looked up, raising his eyebrows as I slowly closed his door and stood outside, feeling like I was going to vomit and pass out simultaneously. We were so still that I could make out faint but frantic talking upstairs and more hurried footsteps. I reread my neighbor's texts to make sure I hadn't misunderstood. I tiptoed to the kitchen, grabbed one of my knives, then returned to the same spot outside Liam's room, anticipating a crazed psycho breaking down the door at any second. I silently prayed for our safety. No sound came from inside Liam's room. After what felt like hours, I heard sirens in the distance, and my heart rate started to slow. My grip on the knife handle loosened. Eventually, I heard shouting, more footsteps, and banging that gradually faded. "This is the police!" a voice shouted. I looked through the peephole to confirm it was a cop, then opened the door, still holding the knife. They were very reassuring and informed us that a tall, lanky man with red hair had just been apprehended and taken into police custody. He had indeed been waiting by our door with a freshly sharpened knife. What he planned to do with it, we could only guess. The man's name was Gregory. He was a drifter with no permanent address, traveling between states, committing petty crimes like theft, harassment, and occasionally stalking minors. Further investigation revealed he had been involved in a gruesome murder in another state and was eventually sentenced to life in prison, along with his accomplices. I wouldn't wish that terror on anyone, but these unfortunate events happen. The psychological damage I experienced that day has never left me. However, I know people who have been through similar horrors but never lived to tell the tale, so I count myself lucky. Where there are sick individuals, there will be victims. The perpetrator was in jail, and I thought that was the end of it. But there was another side to the story that I only discovered 10 years after the incident. Liam was preparing to leave for college, living away from home for the first time. He had grown into a tall young man with a surprising number of friends, still obedient but relentlessly quiet. While packing his things and clearing out his room, I found an old, rugged-looking notebook at the back of his bottom drawer. Liam's diary was written on the cover. I flicked through it with no intention to pry initially, and saw that he had written and drawn extensively, with impressively neat handwriting. Liam had always been a boy of few words, so I was intrigued. I began reading from the first page. Page 1. Cody's house. 11 a.m. He needs to return my jacket. There were a few stick figure drawings. Page 2. I need a book for English class next week. Ask if Amy has one. The first few pages were filled with mundane elementary school day-to-day affairs, mixed with doodles. Then I reached page 21. Page 21. Why does Dad talk so much? He won't even let me get an Xbox, and he won't let me sleep over at Cody's house. Talking back is no use. I hate him. I felt a sting, and my heart sank. I remembered that day vividly, and a pang of guilt ran through me. I turned to the page, page 22. Saw Greg today. He says he can help me get rid of Dad. I said he was lying, but he says he's done it before. It was in the news. As my mind connected the dots, I flicked through the previous pages. This was the first mention of Greg I could find. I started to sweat but continued reading. Page 23. Greg and I are coming up with a plan. Need Dad gone, but I almost got caught talking to him today. Mrs. Watford, that old mole rat, kept asking questions. She took me to the principal's office again. I think Katie saw Greg and snitched. Need to be careful. A few blank pages followed, with some filled with scribbles and notes to self. Then the narrative continued. Page 41. The word plan was underlined, with 2 drawings underneath. The first was of a stick figure kneeling by a door holding what looked like a dagger, smiling. Another stick figure stood behind the door, hand on the door handle, about to open it. The second drawing showed the first stick figure stabbing the figure who had just opened the door, eyes now 2 crosses. Page 42. Greg came to my house and I showed him my plan. He said it was good and he could do it. We almost got caught by Dad, but I got back in bed just in time. He's going to get some tools from his house, close one. Page 43. Greg screwed up. He's in jail now. Why didn't Dad open the door when Greg knocked? Everything went wrong. I don't know why. Page 44. I wish my dad would just shut up. I flicked through the rest of the notebook, which was blank. Page 44 was the last entry. I read the entries several times, pondering what to do. I never thought Liam was capable of such heinous intentions. Confused and upset, I acted as if nothing had happened for a few days, but on the day he was due to leave for college, I couldn't hold it in any longer. I brought his duffel bag down and hooked it on his suitcase. He was ready to head to the station, standing outside the door with the suitcase and his backpack. Liam, when you were younger, did I ever say or do anything that hurt you? You can be honest with me.
No, why do you ask?
I held up the diary. He froze for a second, and I saw the color drain from his face. I won't blame you for anything, don't worry. You know I love you very much, son. You were a minor, and you were a victim of a very sick man. Besides, this thing is years old. I just want to know what I did wrong at the time to lead to this, and we can put it behind us. His shocked expression faded, leaving his ever-present blank stare. You didn't do anything wrong. Neither did Mom. I opened my mouth to ask him what he meant by that, but stopped. The corners of his mouth stretched into a wide smile. Our eyes met, and we stood in silence for a few seconds. Liam, if I were to find another one of these notebooks, I began tactfully, would I see the blueprint of my wife's murder inside?
Yeah.
He didn't even pause to answer. Then he gripped the handle of his suitcase and walked off down the street. That was 2 years ago now. I never forgave him. Every night I still lie awake thinking about whether he was born that way or if it was somehow my fault. We haven't talked since he left that day, and he hasn't come back home. He's never tried to contact me, and I haven't tried to contact him. It looks like he's doing well in college from his Facebook posts. He seems to have a lot of friends, so I assume he got his own place or stays with one of them. I wonder if any of them will ever find out who he really is. Wouldn't blame them if they never do. After all, I still don't know who my son is, and I raised him for 18 years.